Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And David, I'm so excited because today we have an extraordinary story that challenges everything you might think you know about becoming a CPA. Our guest, Ken, accomplished something truly remarkable. In just 1.5 years, he went from having almost no formal higher education to passing the CPA exam. Whether you are considering a career change, looking to finally get your CPA license, or just love a good success story, you don't want to miss this conversation. So let's dive in with Kenyth and learn about his unique path to becoming a CPA. Kenyth Holdefer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be on.
So, Ken, let's start at the beginning. What were you doing before you decided to become a CPA?
Yeah. So, I'll be honest, I kind of want to go back to high school because I think, it does play into the whole story. And I'm 33 now, so it has been quite a journey to get here. But, back in high school, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I worked hard, always went to school and had a job. I liked making money, but I really didn't know what path my career would take me down. However, I did not want to go to college, and really it was strictly due to the cost. I didn't want to come out of college 4 years later with a mountain of debt and really have no flexibility as far as starting a family, and it just wasn't for me at the time. Also, I was mostly interested in accounting going through high school. However, I didn't look into it much at the time, but I knew that you needed 5 years of school, and I didn't know that meant that that's what you needed to get the CPA. But I was like, I want to go to college to begin with, but now I got to go for 5 years if I want to go into accounting. So, I just kind of put it off. And when I was working through high school, I was working at a restaurant, and they basically told me, hey, when you're 18 and out of high school, if you want to manage this part of the restaurant, you can go ahead and do it. And so I heard the money. I was living at home, and I was like, this sounds great. So I worked at that restaurant, and when I turned 21, I kind of was like, do I want to work nights and weekends the rest of my life? And I was like, probably not. And I was still interested in finance. So the restaurant that I worked for used a bank, and I knew the bank manager well there. So I went in there and talked to her one day. I said, I was like, think I'm kind of making a change out of the restaurant. I said, are you hiring? And so she basically hired me on the spot there. So I started working for a bank. And so that's when I was 21. So I worked at the bank for about 3 years, worked my way up from teller to personal banker, and really kind of started to get interested in the loan aspect. And at the time while I was working for the bank, I also went to buy my first townhouse. I had some money saved up because I was living at home for a while and didn't have any debt, so I was just able to save most of my income. And so I went to get a mortgage, and to be honest, the process was terrible. And I got really interested in mortgages because I was like, man, this loan officer and everyone I'm working with, the communication's terrible. The whole process was a nightmare. And after closing on the home, I decided, I'm like, maybe I should go into mortgages because you didn't need a college education, and I felt like I learned a lot going through the process, and I felt that I could do the job better than they did. So got really passionate about mortgages. And when I was 24, left the bank I was working at to go to a lender, and dove straight into mortgages, and did really well. So I did that for about 9 years total. However, a big change started to happen with COVID. When COVID first happened, the rates dropped. We got insanely busy. I worked crazy hours for about 2.5 years straight, and I was making really good money. And I thought at the time, I was like, this is it. Like, this is my career. I'm doing extremely well. But we basically had the opposite effect of COVID. When the rates dropped, we were extremely understaffed, and when the Fed started to raise rates, well, now we had the surplus of staff, and not enough business to go around. But there's also fundamental changes with technology as well, where they're starting to integrate things to be automated, AI, a lot of that stuff. And I just kind of realized, I'm like, I don't know if there's longevity in this career for me anymore in the mortgage business, but I felt really, really stuck. I had 12 college credits to my name at that time. I took some classes back when I think I was 21, 22, but still never dove into college. And now here I am. I got a couple of young kids and a wife, and I was the sole income, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So this is the end of 2022, and it really all started with a Google search, and that's kind of how my accounting journey started. I Googled quick bachelor's degree because I didn't know what to do, and that's kind of the start of my accounting journey from there. So yeah, I kind of know I covered a lot there, but is there anything that you wanted to touch on up to this point?
Well,
I
I
wonder
just
if
want to sort of recap. Like you had a long career in mortgages, 9 years, and you wanted to get out of that because you saw that this is not going to be good for a while, but you didn't have the bachelor's degree,
Mhm.
and you wanted to go into accounting. You kind of always wanted to do that. You just never wanted to do the 5 years, and
Correct.
so you're looking for ways to get that degree quickly. What did you find?
Yeah, so I found a school called Western Governors University, and they have a different education model. It's called competency-based education, and essentially that just means, listen, if you know the material, there's no reason you have to do a bunch of assignment and papers on stuff that you already know. And if you could prove that you know the material by passing the test, it's not really testing out of a class, but it's basically there's a final exam, and if you pass it, you pass the class. So little did I know that would kind of foreshadow the CPA exams. It's you get all the material, you study for it, and you try to pass the test for each course.
It makes so much sense, right? Why make people sit in a classroom if they can pass the final exam with
Yeah,
prior knowledge? So you could challenge any courses that you felt like you already had the knowledge to pass and get those credits on your transcript.
yeah, correct. And they do provide all the materials to study for the exam. So there was a lot of topics that I knew just enough about, but I need to go a little bit deeper in. And some of the more struggling courses I had were humanities. I don't know most of that material. I was more always been kind of finance. So some of those off topic courses are the ones that challenged me a little bit more.
What was an example of that?
They were talking about a bunch of literature and different ages of. I already forgot it. I learned it to pass the test, and then I moved
Right.
on.
Like
So I wanna make
most
sure
of us in college.
we capture this. So you Google quick bachelor's degree is basically what you Googled.
Yeah.
And my understanding is in 3 months you got a bachelor's degree. You're able to do this in 3 months.
Yeah, so now I'm not the only one that has done this through WGU, but you basically you get the courses unlocked as you pass them. In the final exams, you could take it at any time in the day. So a lot of mine happened around midnight when my kids were sleeping. But yeah, you get all the materials. You can schedule the test with a proctor on your computer, and they kind of watch you take the exam. And yeah, if you score high enough on the exam, then you get to move on to the next course.
And you did it in 3 months. How is that possible? Because when I was in college, I was only able to register for like 4 or 5 classes at a time at most.
Yep. So they have a requirement of 4 classes per term. Their terms are 6 months, and once you pass the first four, you can start unlocking them one by one, and kind of tee up, taking more for that course. So with doing it in 3 months, I can't remember exactly. I think it was about 2 to 3 courses a week. Now I did go
But
into it pretty aggressive.
are,
We'll be
wait,
honest.
are you like
Yeah.
maxing out your credit card, paying for credits? Like how did you afford this?
Yeah, so that's actually another great thing about WGU. They're non for profit and you pay per 6 month term. So, as many courses as you could pass in 6 months, it's the same price. Um, bachelor's, I think, is 5 grand every 6 months. And then master's is like 4 grand or maybe I got that. Anyways, it was under 10 grand total by the time it was
Under
all said and done.
$10,000 total for the bachelor's and the master's, and it's
Yep.
like this is like a Las Vegas buffet style, all you can eat education model. That's
But
amazing.
obviously it's intense. So it was during COVID. You had a new baby, or two. I think you said, but multiple children. Like, can you just paint a picture of what your day looked like? Because I'm trying to think. Like, hey, I have a bunch of junk drawer of credits. Could I do this? Like, if you're doing 3 courses a week, basically 3 credits a week. Like, what is your day like? You wake up, and then how do you accomplish this?
Yeah, so I will give my wife credit for this because not only did she encourage me to Google quick bachelor's degree, but also she helped out a ton with the kids. I was working at the time also, so I was working about 40 to 50 hours a week in the mortgage business. But yeah, I'd basically wake up at 5:30, breakfast, work till 5, dinner with the kids. My wife would take them after 7, and about 7 till midnight every night. I do it probably five nights a week, I would say. I need to recharge a little bit, but 7 to midnight. So, it was a lot of 4-hour nights of sleep. But it was worth it. I was motivated, and I felt like this was my ticket to opportunity. And also, I needed to provide for my family, and if something happened with my job, with the decline that was occurring, if I got laid off or something, I want to have that backup plan as soon as possible.
Right. You had the existential financial pressure there to
Yeah.
motivate you. So you did the bachelor's in like 3 months. And
hmm
then how long did the master's take?
Yeah. So the bachelor's did in three
Okay.
months, and then I took about a 2 to 3 month break, I guess you call it, of just working. And then I decided, I was like, all right, well, I'll go for the master's because I need 150 credit hours. I only had 120 at the time. So I started the master's, and the master's was only 10 courses instead of 40 for the bachelor's. So I was able to get the 10 done, and I think it was about like 35 days, around there. It was a little bit over a month.
And what was the master's?
So there's a master's in accountancy at MSA. So I guess now I know I don't need the master's to get the CPA. At the time, I didn't really know. I just was like, just give me 30 more credit hours, and I was happy that WGU also offered the master's because that was the structure and model I needed to, give me the flexibility to move quicker.
Wow. Okay, so you did all of this in like a 6-month period. Then you had to take the CPA exams.
Mhm.
So how did that go?
Yeah, I'll go back a little bit further to when I finished my master's. That's when I really started to dislike a lot of the things that was going on in the mortgage business and some of the directions it was heading. And so that's when I started applying for jobs. And I'll be honest, I applied probably 50 places and thought I would get a lot more traction. Having a master's for the first time in my life, thought that would impact me a little bit more. And it was really, really tough
W-
getting interviews.
Were these public
Um,
accounting firms? Were these corporate accounting departments?
Yeah, so after being in the mortgage kind of corporate world for 9 years, and I was like, I do not want to work for the big four. I
Okay.
want to look for a little bit smaller of a company. I ended up mostly applying for some was private industry, some was public industry, but really the public companies were the only ones that reached out. The private ones I couldn't even no one even engaged with me. Just got the auto rejection emails. So I ended up getting 3 interviews with public accounting firms that were smaller and got 3 offers from them. And once I got the offer, that's when I said, hey, it's time for me to get the CPA done. I'm going to go full force into it because I know that would give me so much more flexibility in my career going forward. And the offer I got was actually in November, but it didn't start until June because they wanted to hire a big group of people, so that they're not trying to train during tax season. And so once I was like, oh, the offer starts in June, like I was a little bit uneasy because I was like, now I got 7 months here to try to work while knowing I have this other job lined up. And once January came along of this year, I just couldn't work in the mortgage business anymore. I just was so burnt out. I knew I was done. And so I ended up quitting in January to just study full time for the CPA exams, and to try to have them done before I started my job in June.
So you quit your job in January and you
Mhm.
had 6 months until your job started in June at the firm.
Yep. Yeah, so I was very methodical in how I was going to take the tests. I'm sure you guys have talked about it. The score releases this year made it really challenging, because I knew some of these tests I was going to take, I wasn't going to know the score. So I ended up taking all 4 exams before any score release happened. I took them basically in 1 month intervals, January, February, March, April. And like I said, I took all 4 before the first score release even happened. And I took it extremely seriously to document everything I was doing, how many hours I was studying, because I wanted to pass them all on the first try, in order to not have to study and work at the new job.
What was your study schedule?
Yeah, so it's pretty much just a full time job. I studied from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and it was like the least amount of hours I've done in a while between working or going to school as well. So, ironically, even though the CPA exam is tough, if you put in the work, you can certainly
Yeah.
pass it. And it was actually probably like the least amount of stress I've been under in a while because I just was balancing so much.
Yeah. That was my experience as well. It wasn't so much that it was challenging in terms of the material. It was just a lot of material, and you had to make the time and have a regular schedule to do it. And
Yes.
if you did that and you also took the practice tests so you knew where you stood, you're going to pass.
Yeah.
Like it's I always wonder how people don't pass, because if you're taking the practice exams and it's a decent test prep company, you should know what score you're going to get.
Yep.
So,
And I think the biggest mistake that people make, just as far as like a tip on the CPA, is that if you spread it out too long, you're going to forget some of the material you learned in the beginning. But also, with everyone talks, you got to take as many MCQs as possible, and that the task-based simulations. And I saved a lot of that really towards the end. I kind of glanced over all the material, learned a little bit about everything, and then just really focused on the multiple choice and the task-based simulation. Within 2 weeks of taking the exam. So that way it's just kind of drilled in your head. But glance over all the material first, get a good understanding of it, and then go back and do a lot of the MCQs and TBS right at the end, so that it's fresh in your brain, and you can identify what you really need to hone in on, and restudy before the exam.
so now you've been at the firm for how long?
So I've been here about a little over 2 months. It's Porte Brown. We're based out of Elk Grove Village in Illinois, and yeah, it's been a fantastic transition, and just the culture and benefits, and everything the company has to offer is a complete 180 from what I'm used to. And it's been an excellent transition. A lot of training, a lot of mentorship,
Yeah.
meetings and stuff to really transition us into the industry in a nice way.
I would love to talk to a partner there and ask how they judge you. Like, are you,
Sure.
oh, he's just like anybody else we've gotten that has their master's and passed the CPA exam. Do they think of less of you? Are you, because you're obviously
Well, you must be
innovative,
like,
are you better than the rest? It'd be really interesting to see what their opinions are.
you must be 10 years older than the other hires that are in
Yeah,
your
not
cohort.
all of them, but a good chunk of them. I think there was like 14 of us, and probably about 10 of them are right out of college. And to be honest, I haven't really been super vocal about my path here. I did talk to them before I was even going, to come on here to tell you guys about it, because it can rub some people the wrong way. I feel like maybe you know just the cost, and how quickly I was able
Yeah.
to change and stuff. But at the same point, like, I do think more people need to be aware of it. Because I know you guys talk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was
Yeah.
going to say, like, that's what I wanted to highlight here, is that you did it for $10,000. You did it in a very short amount of time. And to me, that is a huge win, and we should be celebrating it, because as accountants, aren't we always trying to find the shortest path, right, with the greatest return? And you got
Yeah.
some amazing ROI.
Yeah, and I think you guys talk about the barrier to entry a lot into accounting being the 150 hours, and I think that this is a solution for it. In me passing the CPA exams kind of like validated my path for me, at least, too, because clearly the path I took worked, right? I was able to pass the exams. I was able to get through all the material. So even though it was a shorter period of time, I don't think that I skipped over anything, or really missed some of the
Yeah.
core components to what you need to know in the business. So I think that and especially for people like me too, a lot of the other people in the mortgage business unfortunately got laid off, and they might not know of paths like this to really give your family flexibility. And for me, it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. Not having a degree, I felt like always kind of weighed on me. But now I have credentials I never thought I would quickly. And
Yeah, you're
it
you're
feels
more credentialed than me. I it's amazing.
And
Yeah,
I could see the people like say, oh, well, you go to college, so you can learn to work in groups and work on projects and get the social skills. But as an alternative pathway here, if you want to use that term, you got all those skills when you were working for a decade, right? You don't need those skills. You just need the credits, right, to move forward.
And I feel like you're going to do great in public accounting, because you have seriously hustled and worked long hours, and busy season in public accounting is not going to be as difficult as what you were just doing. you know?
Yeah, I know that's actually a lot of the interviews were like, "Hey, can you work more hours?" And I was like, "Well, that might be less in some,
It's
some
going to be,
aspect." But
yeah.
yeah, I will say the Porty Brown is really progressive with that. I feel like they do recognize that. They don't require crazy hours. Yeah, I think most work 54 to 60, and they really try to push that work life balance. And that's what I kind of mean. That culture and stuff's a little bit of a 180 now. All public accounting firms, I'm sure, are not that way, but I don't know either because I've been in this industry for about 2 months, so I'm not the expert.
Well, we'd love to stay in touch with you and hear how your first busy season goes. We're getting into
Absolutely.
it, right? September 15 is coming up. Hey, we forgot to ask, what are you doing? Are you a tax guy? Are you a CAS guy? Are you a
Yeah, so
audit guy?
they have a lot of generalists, so they kind of expose you to every part of the business. I'll be getting into some audits and stuff later this month, but most of it's been accounting and tax work so far, and that's probably what I gravitate towards. I'm most interested in that. But they do teach everything, and a lot of people do both tax and audit. So you're nice, well-rounded, and understand all aspects of the business.
Is it interesting being on this side now that you've been on the like banking and mortgage side, seeing the paperwork people are sending in? Now you're generating
Well,
it?
yeah, there's a lot of similarities in some aspects of never getting the right information, or it's you kind of got to have to piece it together. But it is funny though too because on the mortgage end, whenever I was requesting something from a CPA, I just trusted what they had to say, and I was like, oh, but, they're so well respected because they have their CPA, so they're always right, right? And now to be on that other side is kind of funny. So that part, kind of came full circle a little bit. But yeah, it's similar in some ways and different in others.
I,
I know that you just spent a long time like getting here, or a lot of effort in a short amount of time. Have you had a chance to sit back and think about where you want to go now that you are in public accounting? Like, where do you envision yourself being in 5 to 10 years? Was that one of the interview questions?
Yeah, I can't recall because the interviews were 7 8 months ago, so I can't recall exactly. But yeah, I don't know, and I think that's okay. It's like after you've been on a path to work towards something, I think it's okay to take a breath and kind of figure things out. And you know, like I said, since COVID, I worked crazy hours or did school, and my kids are now 6 and 4, and to give a little bit more time to them, and and spend some more time with the family, I think is important too, to kind of
Yes.
kind of recharge. But yeah, I feel a lot of stability, and I do feel like the path forward is going to be a good one. I think I heard on your guys' show that 75% of CPAs are retirement age or older, and to me that's just job security. So,
Yep.
and after being on the roller coaster of the mortgage business, that's exactly what I need and what I'm excited for.
do you think, maybe this question for you, Blake, do you think Ken started a movement? Like there's the uh, financially independent retire early movement, and there's these subgroups and communities. And like, is this going to be like a hack? Like, is there going to be a whole movement that are
This
just going to copy Ken?
I think we should like lay this out in some sort of like document or web page, right? So that people find it because you've built a model that others can follow, Ken. I hope that's what people get out of this interview.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I built it. Maybe I'm just trying to project it more to the world. There are those communities, Reddit, and Facebook, and stuff, where there is a lot of communities doing this, and a lot of people in a very similar situation. And one other thing I will say about it is you have to be very self motivated to do this.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear stories like this, sometimes you're like, is that really true? When I first heard about this, I was like, are some of these stories what is there something more to this? But at the end of the day, it really comes down to hard work, and you have to make your own path. And somebody that's directly out of high school, maybe this doesn't work for them because they need a little bit more hand holding with professors, or to hold accountable. But for somebody like myself that was been in the mortgage business for 10 years, had a lot of experience, I didn't need to go restart school for 5 years to change careers. This was a great solution.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I hope we get more and more and many, many more people like you in the profession. And if you are listening and you have a story like this of an alternative path into the CPA or into accounting, share it with us. You can email me and David at theaccountingpodcast@earmark.me. That's theaccountingpodcast@earmark.me. Or better yet, join our new community, earmark.community. Type earmark.community into your web browser and join it. It's completely free. you can chat with me, with David, our fellow listeners, and some other shows on the Earmark app. And let us know what you like about the Earmark app, what you think we should build. And maybe we can get Ken in there too, sharing his
He can manage
tips.
a whole forum just on this.
Yeah. I'm sure he's got plenty to do getting onboarded at the firm. And yes, we'd love to chat with you, Ken, in the future about your experience in public accounting, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Ken.